Welcome, friends. Tonight I invite you to let go of the noise of the present day and step with me into another world, one carved by stone, fire, and time itself. Before we begin, I would like to know, where are you listening from right now? Drop your location in the comments. It is always fascinating to see how people across the globe gather in this one small digital space, all to wander through history together. And while you are here, remember to like this video if you find these stories calming, and subscribe if you would like more quiet journeys through time. Now, take a slow, steady breath. Inhale through your nose, hold for a moment, then exhale softly. Allow your shoulders to sink, your jaw to unclench, and your mind to quiet. You do not need to rush. We are going somewhere that is not measured by minutes and deadlines, but by the turning of seasons, the glow of embers, and the rhythm of footsteps on earth. Tonight, we are traveling into the heart of the ancient Maya world. Imagine that your eyes open to a soft, golden haze. It is not the glow of a screen or the brightness of a lamp, but the filtered light of dawn spilling through palm thatch. You hear the hum of insects rising like a background orchestra, steady but never chaotic. In the air is the faint trace of smoke, not heavy, but aromatic, carrying the resinous sweetness of copal incense. You are lying on a woven mat, firm but warm against the skin, and above you the roof is low and carefully arranged. The air is thick with humidity. It settles on your arms and face like an invisible blanket. For a moment, you simply listen. There are footsteps outside, soft against packed earth, and the murmur of voices, exchanging morning greetings. A clay griddle clicks as it cools, and then another rhythm rises, the soft clap of hands pressing maize dough into flat rounds. That simple sound, thup, 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 has echoed across generations, each beat a promise that life continues. If you have ever woken to the smell of bread, coffee, or rice in your own home, you know the comfort of this moment. The Maya felt it too. You step outside the small limestone house and blink into the brightness. The sun has just crested the tree line, its light catching dew on leaves and turning every droplet into a tiny jewel. The village stirs with familiar routines. A child balances a clay pot as she walks toward the water source. Two men split firewood, their axes ringing with a hollow tone. From a nearby garden, you hear the rustle of leaves as someone gathers squash blossoms for the midday meal. The air carries scents layered like a song wood smoke, damp earth, crushed herbs, and somewhere in the distance, the sweetness of honey mixed with cacao. You notice the village dogs, thin but alert, trotting at the edges, noses to the ground. Chickens cluck softly, pecking at scattered grains. This is not a museum exhibit. It is a living, breathing rhythm of countless ordinary mornings. What strikes you first is how nothing feels wasted. The walls are made of local stone, the roof from palm leaves, the tools from bone, wood, or obsidian. Each object tells a story of care and craft. A gourd bowl is not just a container. It is smoothed and shaped by hand, decorated lightly and passed down when possible. A piece of cloth is not just woven, it carries patterns that mean rain, growth, protection. Even the smallest item whispers of skill and memory. Modern life is full of excess, with items easily bought, broken, and discarded. But here, in this Maya village, survival is a practice of precision. You begin to notice that what seems modest at first is in fact extraordinary. The people here do not simply make meaning. As the morning expands, sound gathers around you, the laughter of children playing with carved wooden toys echoes across the plaza. The dull thud of a pestle-grinding maize in a stone mortar joins the rhythm of footsteps on packed earth. From one corner of the village, a musician tests the notes of a reed flute, its voice thin but clear against the thick air. These are not isolated noises. Together, they weave a kind of acoustic tapestry that tells you exactly where you are and who you belong to. Think for a moment about your own neighborhood or home. What sounds would someone remember it by? The buzz of traffic, the hum of an air conditioner, the ping of a phone. For the Maya, the soundtrack was organic, earthy, and communal. Even silence, the pause between bird calls, or the stillness before rain, was part of their vocabulary. At this point, you may be thinking, this does not sound brutal. It sounds peaceful, even idyllic. And you are right, partially. The Maya world was not a nightmare of constant hardship. It was a world of beauty, competence, and resilience. Yet, beneath this tranquility lay the weight of expectation, the endless cycle of planting and harvesting, the pressure of cosmic debts owed to gods, and the looming uncertainty of weather and war. But for now, in this opening chapter of our journey, I want you to feel the humanity before the hardship. Too often, history books rush straight to blood, battles, and collapse. They forget the mornings like this, the ordinary routines that gave life meaning. Without understanding this foundation of daily rhythms, the more difficult parts of Maya life make little sense. So, as we begin, remember that history is not just dates and ruins. It is the taste of warm maize, the scent of burning copal, the feel of humidity clinging to skin, and the simple comfort of belonging to a community that knows its place in the turning of the world. This is where our journey starts, in the hum of dawn, in a small Maya village where survival was not an abstract concept, but an everyday choreography of hands, hearts, and voices. Stay with me, because from this quiet threshold, we will move outward into the fields that fed them, the rituals that bound them to their gods, the markets that connected distant lands, and the palaces where power was displayed with feathers and jade. By the end, we will see both sides, the beauty and the burden, the harmony and the fragility. But right now, allow yourself to linger in this moment. Hear the tortilla rhythm, smell the incense, and know that you are standing at the edge of one of humanity's most fascinating civilizations. You take a few more steps beyond the cluster of houses, and the ground changes under your feet. The village paths give way to a wider expanse, a patchwork of green that is neither wilderness nor a neatly ordered garden. This is the milpa, the great teacher of the Maya, a field that is also a philosophy. At first glance, it looks almost casual, a mixture of plants rising together, but as your eyes adjust, you begin to notice the pattern. Maize grows tall, its stalks reaching like ladders to the sun. Beans climb those stalks as if they were made for each other, wrapping their tendrils around the sturdy supports. At the base, squash sprawls outward, its wide leaves casting shade across the soil, keeping moisture in and weeds at bay. Together, these three are called the Three Sisters, and their cooperation is older than memory. To eat from them is not just to fill a stomach, it is to participate in a conversation that has lasted centuries. The Maya knew this pattern by heart. Each planting season was a gamble against weather, pests, and the unknown, but it was a gamble softened by design. The maize provides structure and calories, the beans replenish the soil with nitrogen, and the squash protects the roots from the burning sun. If one fails, the others cushion the loss. It is not efficiency in the way a modern machine is efficient, but it is resilience. Where monoculture demands perfection, the milpa whispers balance, and balance is what kept life moving forward. You watch as villagers bend to their tasks, Some pull weeds and tuck them into baskets. Nothing is wasted, for even weeds can be boiled as greens in times of shortage. Others turn the soil gently with wooden hoes, their bodies moving in rhythms learned by repetition. There is sweat. Of course, no romantic gloss can hide the ache of a back bent too long or the sting of blisters from stone tools. But there is also something steady, almost meditative, in the work. Each swing, each pull, each step in the furrow feels like part of a larger choreography. The field is a classroom, and every season is a lesson. As the sun climbs higher, the voices of the workers mingle with the sounds of nature. Birds dart overhead, sometimes bold enough to steal a seed. Insects hum, some friendly pollinators, some less welcome. The workers respond without panic, guided by inherited wisdom, a line of ash at the edge to deter pests, a timing of planting chosen not at random but by the careful eye of a daykeeper who has read the cycles of stars and seeds alike. Here, agriculture is not a fight against nature. It is a dialogue. You give, you take, you listen, you adjust. And if you fail to listen, the land will answer with silence in the form of withered stalks. Think of how we live today. Many of us buy food wrapped in plastic, shipped from thousands of miles away, often disconnected from the season it belongs to. We call strawberries in winter fresh, and never ask what soil or sun produced them. For the Maya, there was no such illusion. Seasonality was not a lifestyle choice. It was the boundary of life itself. To plant outside the rhythm was to risk hunger. To neglect the soil was to betray not only the earth, but the community that depended on it. The milpa was not just food, it was memory, discipline, and respect made visible. And yet, despite its wisdom, the milpa was never easy. Imagine working under a midday sun so strong it feels like a weight pressing on your neck, with humidity clinging to every breath. Imagine the frustration when rains delay and seedlings strain against dry earth, or when too much water drowns the roots you tended with care. Imagine hearing the rustle of animals in the night and waking to find rows trampled or nibbled. These were not rare events. They were constant reminders that survival was a partnership, never a guarantee. Still, there is a kind of beauty in the struggle. You watch as a woman pauses from weeding to wipe her brow, then reaches down to pick a squash blossom, tucking it into her basket with the same care she gives her child's hand. You notice the quiet cooperation between neighbors, the way one lends a tool without a word, the way another calls out advice from across the rows. Farming is labor, yes, but it is also community. Each row tilled and each seed sown ties lives together. What makes the milpa extraordinary is that it demanded rest. Unlike modern fields forced into constant production, a milpa was allowed to breathe. After years of use, it would be left fallow, given back to the forest so the soil could heal. New plots were cleared, while the old ones reseeded themselves, a rotation as natural as breathing in and breathing out. To an outsider, this might look like inefficiency, but to the Maya it was foresight. They knew the land could not be wrung dry forever. They accepted limits as part of wisdom. This is a lesson we can still take to heart. In our own time, rest is often treated as weakness. We glorify endless growth, non-stop productivity, constant harvests from our own bodies and minds. But the Maya Milpa reminds us that sustainability is scheduling, that pause is not failure, but maintenance. Just as soil must rest to remain fertile, so too must people pause to remain whole. As you walk further into the field, the horizon opens. You see the great ceiba tree in the distance, its trunk impossibly straight, its crown spreading wide, as though it connects earth and sky. The villagers glanced toward it with subtle reverence, for it is more than a tree. It is a reminder of balance, of roots and branches, of cycles that govern both crops and people. And in this moment, you begin to see the field not as a patch of plants, but as an extension of a worldview. To work the milpa is to live inside a philosophy. Everything is interconnected. Everything has its season, and nothing thrives alone. You stop to breathe, the smell of green leaves and damp soil rising around you, and you realize that what looks ordinary is extraordinary. A handful of maize seeds holds the memory of ancestors. A climbing bean vine is a teacher of cooperation. A squash leaf shading the ground is a lesson in humility. Together they form not just a meal, but a message that survival comes not from dominance, but from partnership. And so, as the villagers finish their morning tasks and gather their baskets, you step back toward the village with a new understanding. The Maya world was sustained not by mystery alone, nor by monuments of stone, but by this quiet, relentless, sacred labor in the fields. Here, beneath the sun and the sweat, in the dirt beneath fingernails, and the ache of tired shoulders, was the foundation of a civilization. It may look humble, but it is nothing less than the architecture of life. As the work in the milpa slows and the baskets of beans, maize, and squash are carried back toward the village, your eyes begin to notice something else, something woven into the people themselves. At first it is subtle, almost invisible, but the longer you observe, the more it becomes clear not everyone here wears the same markers of status. Even in a small farming community, the social fabric is stitched with threads of difference displayed in clothing, ornaments, and even in the way people carry themselves. Ixchel, the woman who first guided you, is an example. Her huipil is not plain, but embroidered with complex designs in red and blue thread. Around her neck hangs a pendant of jade, polished to a soft glow. Her teeth shaped into points, and inlaid with green stone signal beauty in this world, though they might look startling to your modern eyes. These details are not mere decoration. They are declarations. They whisper quietly to anyone who knows how to listen. Here is someone of standing, someone whose family carries weight, someone whose lineage touches nobility. In contrast, the man who handed you the stone hoe wears only a simple loincloth. His body is adorned not with jade, but with tattoos, intricate lines marking both identity and endurance. Where jade glitters, tattoos endure. They are marks earned through age, through battles, through work in the fields. His pride is not less, it is different. He is a commoner, yet his bearing is steady, his dignity unshaken. You begin to realize that beauty and honor take many forms in Maya society. Children, too, carry these differences on their bodies. Some wear tiny shell necklaces, their smooth surfaces catching the sunlight. Others wear nothing at all, their status written in absence, in bare skin and laughter unadorned. But even this carries meaning. To wear nothing is not shame. It is a stage of life, an acknowledgement that childhood belongs to freedom, to running, to play. The more you notice, the more the village becomes a living gallery. Cotton tunics dyed with plant colors, beads carved from bone, feathers plucked from tropical birds, shells traded from the coast, all combine to tell stories of who these people are and where they belong. Identity here is never only about the self, it is about connection. To family, to ancestors, to community, and to gods. Think about how we dress today. Much of our clothing is mass-produced, stripped of unique meaning beyond brand logos. But here, every thread holds weight. The dye of a tunic recalls the plant from which it was extracted. A pendant carved from jade remembers the mountain where the stone was found. A feather tucked into hair carries the brilliance of a bird once alive. Wearing these things is not vanity, it is participation in a chain of existence that stretches back through generations. And yet, the distinctions could be sharp. For the elite, jade was more than ornament. It was sacred. Its cool green glow symbolized life and fertility, rain and maize, the essence of continuity itself. To hold jade was to hold a fragment of eternity. Only those with status could wear it openly. For commoners, jade might appear only as a tiny bead, treasured beyond its size. Shells, obsidian and bone, filled the space between the accessible luxuries of ordinary people, crafted with as much artistry as the king's headdress, but without the same divine sanction. The king himself, when you recall his procession, embodied the extreme of this visual language. His headdress towered with quetzal feathers, impossibly green, each plume worth the labor of many lives to acquire. His chest gleamed with jade plaques, his ears stretched with gold, his nose adorned with serpent-shaped ornaments. To see him was not just to see a man, it was to confront a living symbol. His body was the canvas upon which divine power was painted. He did not need to speak because his adornments spoke for him, declaring his identity as one chosen by the gods. But adornment was not only about beauty or hierarchy, it was about belief. Filed teeth, scarification, tattoos, body paint, all carried spiritual meaning. A red painted face connected the wearer to the east, to sunrise, to lifeblood. Blue linked them to water and sacrifice, to the flow of rivers and the favor of rain gods. Each mark transformed the body into more than flesh. It became a vessel of meaning, a site of dialogue between human and divine. As the villagers gather in the central square after the fieldwork, you notice how status does not always create distance. Nobles and commoners sit together to share food, though the portions differ. A man with jade receives a larger tamale. A woman with shell beads offers a smaller one in return. The inequality is real but softened by ritual sharing. There is pride in wealth, but also obligation. Those with more are expected to give more, to support festivals, to lead ceremonies, to feed neighbors when crops fail. Status in this world is both privilege and burden. This balance fascinates you because it complicates the modern image of hierarchy. We often think of class systems as rigid, oppressive walls. Here, though, the lines are strong but porous. A skilled craftsman might gain influence despite humble birth. A family might lose standing if they fail to uphold obligations. Status is not only inherited, it is continually negotiated, displayed, and affirmed through daily actions. Even laughter carries weight. You hear it in the way young women giggle behind embroidered cloths when the warriors walk past, their tattoos gleaming in the sun. You see it in the way children imitate elders by drawing simple glyphs in the dirt, pretending to be scribes. Every gesture is a rehearsal of roles, a preparation for futures both ordinary and extraordinary. And as you observe, you realize that dignity does not belong only to kings and priests. It lives in the bent back of the farmer who straightens to gaze at the sky. It shines in the hands of a mother who threads cotton on a loom. It pulses in the laughter of children who wear no ornaments at all but carry the hope of the community. The markers of status are real, but beneath them runs a deeper truth. Each person is a thread, necessary to the weave, holding together the fabric of life. In the fading light of afternoon, the ornaments catch fire. Jade glows greener, shells gleam whiter, feathers flash brighter, but it is the dignity beneath them that stays with you. The ornaments may crack, fade, or be lost to time. The dignity, the human pride in belonging, in contributing, in carrying identity remains unbroken. And so, as you walk back toward the limestone house, the lesson settles quietly into you. The Maya world was not only pyramids and rituals, not only fields of maize and squash. It was also this, a world where people wrote their stories on their bodies, where ornaments were not vanity but vocabulary, where dignity was shared even across lines of status, a world where identity was never just I, but always we. The day is not measured only by the rise and fall of the sun in the Maya world. It is also marked by the rhythms of ritual small gestures repeated until they become part of the air, the sound, the very soil itself. As you return from the milpa and settle into the heart of the village, you begin to notice these rhythms everywhere, quiet yet constant. In one corner of a house, smoke curls upward from a small clay burner. It is copal incense, its resin melting into fragrant trails that drift lazily into the sky. The scent is sweet, earthy, almost sharp at the edges, and it lingers in your throat the way memory does when it refuses to fade. Every household, it seems, has its own burner, and every morning begins with the same act: light the fire, feed the flame, invite the gods to share the day. You watch as Ixchel tends to the small hearth at the center of her home. 3 stones form a triangle, supporting the clay comal where tortillas are cooked. But the stones mean more than function. They are a reflection of the cosmos. According to Maya belief, the gods themselves placed 3 great stones to anchor the world. Each time a woman lights her hearth, she echoes that act of creation. The rising smoke does not only feed the family with warmth and food, it connects the household to the divine order. When Ixchel grinds maize on her metate, the sound is steady and rhythmic, stone against stone, grain against surface, turning kernels into dough. At first it feels like mere labor, but then you realize it has the same cadence as a chant, a prayer repeated without words. Even daily cooking, the simplest act of survival, becomes a form of offering. The tortillas that emerge are not only food, they are embodiments of life. Small sons born of maize and fire. Step outside, and you see other rituals woven into daily life. A man pauses at the edge of the field to place a few kernels of maize on the ground before beginning his work. A child whispers a greeting to the ceiba tree before climbing its roots to play. A young woman balances a pot of water on her head, but before she drinks, she tips a drop onto the ground, acknowledging the earth that gave it. None of these acts are grand or dramatic. They are quiet acknowledgments, constant reminders that life is not lived in isolation, but in dialogue with forces larger than oneself. The rhythm of the village follows cycles of sound. In the morning, you hear the conch shell blown by a young boy, its low, hollow note signaling the start of communal work. At midday, drums echo faintly from the ceremonial center in the distance, reminding everyone that prayers for rain and fertility are being carried out on their behalf. At dusk, the soft clatter of rattles accompanies chants sung by elders near the central fire. Each sound is both ordinary and extraordinary, a schedule, a reminder, a tether to the sacred. Think about how we live now. Alarms buzz on phones, announcements hum over loudspeakers, schedules are enforced by digital calendars. The Maya had their own calendar, far more complex and precise than most imagine, but its presence was felt not only in numbers and glyphs. It was embedded in actions, in rituals, in incense, smoke, and drum beats. For them, time was not abstract. It was embodied, made visible in the daily rhythm of devotion. And this devotion was not optional. To neglect it was to invite imbalance. If incense was not burned, the gods might not hear. If maize was eaten without offering, drought might come. If the cycles of the calendar were ignored, the very fabric of the cosmos could unravel. For the Maya, ritual was not superstition. It was maintenance. Just as you clean a house to keep it livable, they performed rituals to keep the universe in harmony. At midday, Ixchel invites you to join her at the household altar. It is simple, a small shelf in the corner of her home holding clay figurines, jade beads, and carved symbols. She places a fresh flower beside the figures, its bright color standing out against the pale stone. She sprinkles a few drops of water, then lights another piece of copal. She bows her head, murmuring words you do not understand, but whose intention you can feel: gratitude, reverence, connection. She gestures for you to do the same. You hesitate, uncertain, but then you pick up a single bean from the meal earlier and place it gently before the figurines. It seems too small, almost laughably simple, and yet, in that moment, you feel the weight of the gesture. It is not the size of the offering that matters. It is the act of remembering, of pausing to say, I did not create this alone. I eat because the earth gave. I live because the gods allowed. The villagers laugh, they work, they argue, they love. Life is not constant solemnity. And yet, threaded through everything is the reminder of sacred presence. Smoke from incense drifts through the air so constantly that it becomes part of the atmosphere. Ash from burnt offerings mixes into the soil, returning prayers to the earth. Even laughter shared over food is preceded by a pause, a small glance at the sky, as if to check that joy too is permitted. As dusk falls, the entire village gathers around a larger fire at the center. The elders sit closest, their faces illuminated by flickering light, lines etched deeper by shadows. Children cluster at the edges, half listening, half dozing. Musicians play drums and flutes, their tones weaving a net of sound that holds everyone together. This is not festival, not ceremony at a great pyramid. It is simply daily rhythm. A reminder that the gods do not live only in temples of stone, but also in evenings by the fire. You find yourself relaxing into this rhythm. The incense no longer surprises you. It soothes you. The chants do not confuse you. They comfort you. The gestures of sprinkling water, of placing flowers, of burning resin, no longer feel foreign. They feel natural, as though your own body recognizes them. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation. Ritual is not about belief alone. It is about practice, repetition, embodiment. You participate not because you understand everything, but because the act itself creates meaning. By the time the fire burns low and villagers retreat to their homes, you realize you have learned something profound. Ritual is not extra, it is essential. It is the framework that holds community, the reminder that life has more layers than the visible. For the Maya, to wake without incense, to eat without offering, to sleep without thanks would be unthinkable. Life without ritual would not be life at all. It would be emptiness. And so, as you return to your small limestone house, the scent of copal still clinging to your clothes, you carry this understanding with you. The day has been long, filled with labor and laughter, with sweat and smoke, with maize and prayer. Yet what you will remember most is not the weight of the hoe or the taste of tortillas. It will be the incense rising, the rhythms repeating, the sacred woven into the ordinary. In this ancient world, daily rituals did more than pass time. They anchored existence. And in realizing this, you begin to wonder, what are our rituals today? Do they connect us, sustain us, remind us of balance? Or have we let them fade, leaving only the hollow ticking of the clock? The next morning, the rhythm of the village shifts. You notice it immediately, not in words, but in the way people move, in the quickening of steps, in the way conversations pause. When a sound from the distance rises above the everyday noise, it begins faintly, like a heartbeat carried on the wind, the steady thump of drums, low and resonant. Soon after, the call of conch shells follows, their hollow notes echoing across the fields and bouncing from tree to tree. Even the birds seem to quiet for a moment, as though listening. Something extraordinary is coming. The villagers gather along the main path, their eyes drawn toward the sound. Children tug at their mothers' arms, whispering with excitement, while elders lean on staffs, their expressions a mix of reverence and memory. You realize you are about to witness something few outsiders ever have: the procession of the king. At first, you see only the dust rising, shimmering in the heat. Then the figures appear, warriors walking in formation, their bodies painted in bright reds and deep blacks, their movements sharp and deliberate. They carry obsidian-tipped spears that glint in the sunlight, each step synchronized with the drumbeat. Their presence alone would be enough to impress, but they are only the beginning. Behind them come musicians with flutes, rattles, and drums, their music weaving a hypnotic rhythm that quickens your heartbeat. The air thickens with incense. Men walk with clay burners in their hands, trails of smoke rising and twisting into the sky. The scent of copal fills your lungs, mingling with the sound of drums and shells, until you can almost believe the air itself is alive. And then, at last, the king appears. He is taller than you expected, not by nature alone, but by design. His headdress towers above him, a magnificent creation of jade, gold, and quetzal feathers so green they seem unreal, shimmering like living emeralds. The feathers sway with each step, catching the light as though they carry the sun itself. His face is painted, half red, half black, a living symbol of duality, life and death, day and night, human and divine. His chest gleams with jade plaques, each carved with symbols of gods and ancestors, each heavy with meaning. The crowd falls silent, not from fear alone, but from awe. To see the king is not simply to see a man. It is to glimpse a bridge between this world and the divine. His presence is theatrical, yes, but it is also sacred. He is the embodiment of cosmic order, the guarantor of rain, harvest, and survival. When he lifts his hand, the gesture ripples outward like a wave. People bow. Children hide their faces. Elders murmur prayers. You feel the weight of it, too. Even as an outsider, you cannot help but bow your head. Behind the king, attendants carry banners painted with glyphs, their fabric catching the wind. Priests walk close, their robes marked with symbols of gods, their hands holding sacred objects, jade scepters, carved skulls, vessels of water and blood. Together, they form a living tapestry of power, each piece amplifying the presence of the king. You notice that his steps are slow, deliberate. This is not a march of efficiency. It is a performance. Every movement is meant to be seen, every gesture a message. He does not hurry because he does not need to. Time bends around him. The people wait for him, adjust for him, breathe in rhythm with him. This is power made visible, the ability to control not only armies or land, but perception itself. And yet, as awe-inspiring as it is, there is also something fragile beneath it. You see the sweat on the attendants' brows as they carry the heavy banners. You hear the cough of the priest who struggles to keep pace. You notice how carefully the king places each step, as though the weight of the headdress is nearly unbearable. Power, you realize, is heavy. The beauty of the procession hides the burden, but the burden is there all the same. The villagers, however, see only majesty. For them, this is reassurance. To witness the king in his full regalia is to know the world is still intact. If he stands strong, if he wears the feathers and jade, if the drums still sound and the incense still rises, then perhaps the rains will come, the maize will grow, and the balance of life will endure. The king is not only ruler, he is symbol, living proof that the cosmic order has not collapsed. As the procession passes, children scatter flower petals on the ground, their bright colors softening the path. Women lift bowls of food, tamales, cacao drinks, fruits as offerings, not to be eaten by the king himself, but to be taken as tribute, reminders that his people feed him just as he feeds them with protection and favor. The exchange is unequal, yes, but it is also mutual. The people give material gifts. The king gives symbolic security. You find yourself caught between two feelings. On one hand, you are deeply impressed. The spectacle works. The colors, the music, the feathers, the smoke, they overwhelm the senses, convincing you of his greatness. On the other hand, you sense the fragility. Strip away the feathers, the paint, the jade, and he is still only a man. A man who must eat, sleep, and one day die. A man whose power depends on belief, whose authority exists only as long as others agree to see the divine in his human frame. And this, perhaps, is the greatest lesson of the procession. Power is not only about armies or wealth, it is about performance. It is about convincing people that you are more than yourself, that your body is not just flesh, but symbol. The Maya king understood this deeply. His headdress was not decoration, it was transformation. His ornaments were not luxury, they were language. His steps were not simple walking, they were choreography in the theater of survival. As the king and his entourage move past and the dust begins to settle, the villagers slowly return to their routines. The warriors disappear down the path, the drums fade, the incense smoke dissolves into the sky, and yet the feeling lingers. People speak in hushed tones, children reenact the procession in play, and the memory of feathers and jade glimmers in everyone's mind. The performance has ended, but its impact remains. You return to your small house that evening with new eyes. Yesterday, the ornaments of villagers seemed like mere personal identity, jade pendants, tattoos, shells. Today, you see how those small details connect to something larger, how they mirror the same language the king himself uses, though on a smaller scale. The difference is magnitude, not kind. Every person is part of the same performance, the same display of meaning, from the farmer in the field to the king in his regalia. And as night falls, you lie on your woven mat and realize that you too were part of the performance. By bowing your head, by breathing incense, by feeling awe, you confirmed his power. That is the secret of the king's procession. It is not only about what he shows, but about how the people respond. Without their belief, the feathers would be only feathers, the jade only stone, the drum only sound. With their belief, they become a bridge between heaven and earth. The memory of the king's procession lingers in your mind long after the drums have faded. Yet the Maya world does not end with spectacle alone. Beneath the feathers, the jade, and the music lies something deeper, something that holds the entire cosmos together. Ceremony. To live in this world is to live in constant dialogue with the unseen, a dialogue maintained not through words alone, but through offerings sometimes of incense and flowers, sometimes of blood. As twilight descends, you are invited to the edge of the ceremonial plaza. The air feels different here, heavier, as though the space itself remembers centuries of devotion. Fires are lit in stone braziers, their flames crackling in rhythm with the beating of drums. The scent of copal is thick, so dense it seems to press against your skin. Shadows flicker across the carved stelae that line the plaza, their glyphs and figures illuminated in fragments, as if the past itself is leaning forward to watch. A priest steps into the center, his robe painted with symbols of serpents and stars. In his hand he carries a bowl filled with strips of paper made from tree bark. Another priest follows, carrying a stingray spine, its sharp edge gleaming in the firelight. The crowd quiets, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Everyone knows what comes next. The priest kneels before the fire and draws the spine across his skin, just enough to release a thin line of blood. He presses it onto the paper, the fibers drinking it in like thirsty soil. The paper is then placed into the flames, where it curls, blackens, and rises as smoke. The people bow their heads, murmuring prayers. They do not see this as cruelty or pain. To them, it is reciprocity, the most natural exchange in the world. The gods gave blood to create humanity. Humanity returns it to sustain the gods. You feel a shiver, not of fear, but of realization. In our modern world, sacrifice often sounds barbaric, but here it is a language and ancient contract written not on stone, but on flesh. Blood is life, and to offer it is to acknowledge that life is not owned, only borrowed. To give a drop is to say, I remember, I honor, I repay. The ceremony grows. Nobles step forward, each offering their own blood, not from fatal wounds, but from controlled cuts, tongues, ears, thighs, places where pain is sharp but survivable. Their blood joins the fire, feeding the smoke that spirals upward. In that rising column, the people see more than smoke. They see communication. The ancestors are being called. The gods are being nourished. The balance of the universe is being maintained. You notice the faces of the crowd. They are not horrified. Some look serene, others focused, still others tearful with devotion. For them, this is no different than offering bread at a family altar or incense at dawn. It is simply more intense, more potent, more immediate. Life is fragile, they know. Drought, famine, war, any of these can tip the balance. To keep the world whole requires effort. Sometimes effort means sweat. In the milpa, sometimes it means blood in the fire. Occasionally the offerings go further. Captives from war or volunteers chosen by fate may stand at the center, their lives given not in cruelty, but in transformation. To die here, in this context, is to cross a threshold, to become part of the eternal dialogue. The people do not look away. They watch, they pray, they accept. It is difficult for you as an outsider to understand, but slowly you realize this is not about death. It is about continuity. The offering ensures the rains will return, the maize will grow, the stars will stay in their courses. To the Maya, nothing could be more important. The ceremony intensifies. Drums pound louder, rattles shake, chants rise in layered tones. The fire roars higher as blood-soaked paper feeds its hunger. The air vibrates with energy, a mixture of smoke, sound, and devotion so strong you feel it in your bones. For a moment, the boundary between worlds feels thinner, as if the gods themselves are leaning close to breathe in the offering. And then, just as suddenly the intensity subsides, the drums slow, the chanting softens, the fire burns lower, the priests step back, their robes stained, their faces solemn but calm. The people exhale as one, relief mingling with reverence. The ceremony is complete. The balance has been renewed. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, the maize will grow, the cycle will continue, because tonight, humanity remembered its part of the contract. As you walk away, your mind struggles to hold both perspectives, the modern instinct to recoil at blood and the ancient instinct to honor it. Yet the more you reflect, the more you see the coherence. For the Maya, sacrifice was not cruelty, it was gratitude. It was acknowledgement that existence is never free. Something must always be given, so that something else may live. In their world, this truth was not hidden. It was lived, embodied, sanctified. You think of your own world. How often do we consume without acknowledgement, take without thanks, live as though life costs nothing? The Maya would find this strange, perhaps even dangerous. To them, forgetting the cost of life was the surest path to imbalance, to collapse. Better to remember, even if it requires pain, than to forget and risk everything. As you settle back into the quiet of the village, the last traces of incense lingering in your hair, you realize you have witnessed not just a ceremony, but a worldview, a way of seeing life as exchange, as balance, as endless reciprocity. And though centuries separate you from these people, their lesson is still clear. To live is to give, to breathe is to owe, to be human is to remember that nothing endures without sacrifice. The memory of the incense and blood still lingers in your senses, heavy with meaning. But the Maya world is not only solemnity. Life moves in cycles, and where there is sacrifice, there is also celebration. The same plazas that echo with drums of ceremony also pulse with laughter, feasting, and dance. Tonight, you are invited to witness such a festival, a gathering that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, binding the people not only to their gods, but also to one another. As the sun dips below the horizon, torches are lit along the village square. Their flames flicker, painting the limestone walls in waves of gold and shadow. From the surrounding homes, families pour out, carrying baskets brimming with food, steaming tamales wrapped in maize leaves, roasted squash glistening with honey, bowls of beans flavored with chili and herbs. Each dish is prepared not for individuals but for sharing. The air becomes thick with aromas, mingling into a single intoxicating scent that speaks of abundance. Children dart between adults, their laughter rising like music. They chase one another with painted masks, pretending to be jaguars or serpents, growling and hissing with playful ferocity. Elders smile at the sight, some clapping along to the rhythm of small drums. You realize quickly that a festival here is not an interruption of daily life. It is its natural expansion. The rhythms of farming, ritual, and work are the foundation. Celebration is the flowering. Musicians take their places in the center. Drums of different sizes form the heartbeat, joined by wooden flutes, clay whistles shaped like birds, and rattles filled with seeds. When they begin to play, the sound is irresistible, low, steady pulses that invite your feet to move before your mind agrees. Dancers step into the circle, their bodies painted in brilliant colors, their costumes adorned with feathers and shells that catch the firelight. Each step is precise yet fluid, their movements telling stories of gods, ancestors, and animals. You recognize echoes of ceremony in their gestures. But here the tone is joyful, expansive, free. Women carry vessels filled with cacao drinks, thick and dark, frothed with wooden whisks until a layer of foam crowns each cup. The drink is bitter, yet rich, flavored with chili or honey depending on the household. When handed a cup, you take a sip and feel its warmth spread through your body. This is no ordinary refreshment. It is a treasured gift, a drink of energy and spirit, reserved for special occasions. Passing it hand to hand, neighbor to neighbor, reinforces the sense that abundance is not private but shared. The feast begins in earnest. People sit on mats, passing bowls, breaking tortillas together, offering bites to one another before taking their own. Laughter rolls across the square as stories are told, some of daily mishaps in the milpa, others of legendary ancestors who outwitted gods or animals. Each tale is punctuated by the rhythm of drums, as though sound itself refuses to sit idle. You find yourself smiling, even laughing, swept into the tide of voices and music. What strikes you most is how the festival transforms status. The noble, who yesterday wore jade and feathers, now sits cross-legged, eating from the same bowl as a farmer. Children run freely between them, unconcerned with titles. Elders are treated with respect, but everyone shares in the food, the drink, the music. In this space, hierarchy softens. The community becomes one body, nourished not just by food, but by joy itself. As the night deepens, the dancing grows wilder. Young men leap with the strength of jaguars, their painted bodies gleaming with sweat. Women spin gracefully, their skirts flaring as shells rattle in rhythm. Some dances are playful imitations of animals, monkeys scratching, birds flapping, sending children into fits of laughter. Others are solemn reenactments of myths, reminding the people that joy and memory can coexist. The line between performance and participation blurs, and soon even you are pulled into the circle, your hesitant steps met with cheers and encouragement. For a moment, you belong. Between dances, more cacao is passed, more tamales unwrapped, more songs sung. A group of elders begins a chant, their voices rough but steady, recalling ancient words that few truly understand but all feel. Younger voices join in, layering harmony over age, until the entire square seems to hum. Above, the stars blaze brilliantly, unmuted by city lights, as if they too are listening. And then comes the part that surprises you most: silence. After hours of sound and laughter, the music pauses. The people sit quietly, looking toward the sky. A priest steps forward, raising a cup of cacao, and speaks a few words of thanks to the gods, to the ancestors, to the earth itself. The crowd murmurs in agreement, a collective hum of gratitude. Only after this pause does the music resume, louder than before, joy renewed by reverence. You realize then that for the Maya, joy and devotion are not opposites. Celebration is itself a kind of offering. To dance is to honor the body the gods created. To share food is to honor the earth that gave it. To laugh is to honor the breath of life. In this worldview, joy is not frivolous. It is sacred. Festivals are not distractions from duty. They are fulfillments of it. The night stretches on until torches burn low, and drums slow their pace. Families drift back to their homes, carrying baskets now empty but hearts full. The square grows quiet again, though faint laughter still lingers in the air like an echo. You too return to your mat, your body tired, but your spirit lighter. Lying there, you understand the balance more clearly. The Maya world was not endless toil, nor endless ritual, nor endless spectacle. It was all of these braided together, with joy as a vital strand. The feasts, the dances, the music, the cacao. They were not luxuries, but necessities, reminders that life, even in its fragility, is worth celebrating. And perhaps that is why their civilization endured for centuries, because they knew that survival requires not only sacrifice, but also joy, not only blood, but also laughter, not only offerings, but also celebration. The morning after the festival dawns quiet, as though the village itself needs rest from so much joy. Yet today, you are led beyond the fields and homes, down a well-worn path that widens into something greater. The air shifts as you walk, the trees thinning, the horizon opening, until suddenly the world rises before you in stone. What you see is not a village but a city, a place where human hands have remade the earth into a theater of gods and power. The first thing you notice are the pyramids. They rise like mountains carved with intention, their steps climbing toward the sky in precise geometry. Each block of limestone, each angle, each stair, seems aligned not only with human design but with cosmic order. The largest pyramid dominates the plaza, its peak catching the first rays of sunlight, as though holding a torch for the heavens. To stand before it is to feel small, not diminished, but awed, reminded that you are part of something vast. At the base of the pyramid, steles stand tall, carved with glyphs and figures. They tell stories of kings and battles, of alliances and victories, of rituals performed to keep the world in balance. But these are not simple inscriptions. They are libraries in stone. Each symbol carries layers of meaning, sounds, ideas, dates, even entire philosophies, compressed into elegant curves. To read them is to unlock the past, to speak with ancestors across centuries. Nearby, you see scribes at work. Their hands move steadily across bark paper codices, brushes dipped in black and red pigment. They write not only the deeds of kings, but the cycles of time, the movement of planets, the days of planting and harvest. Their faces are calm, almost meditative, as if each glyph is a prayer, as much as a record. Children watch them, wide-eyed, tracing invisible lines in the air, as if rehearsing for the day they too might learn the sacred script. The city hums with activity. Markets buzz with traders offering obsidian blades, jade beads, salt, honey, cacao, feathers from distant jungles. Temples resonate with chants, their courtyards filled with incense smoke. Couriers hurry between buildings, carrying messages wrapped in cloth. This is not chaos, but orchestration, every role playing its part in the larger symphony of urban life. And above it all is the sky. The Maya did not merely look at the heavens. They studied them with an intensity that rivals any modern astronomer. High on a platform, you see a group of priests watching the horizon. They mark the sun's path with cords stretched taut, recording its rise and fall against temple walls. They note the phases of the moon, the flicker of Venus, the slow crawl of constellations. To them, the sky is not distant, but intimate, a clock that governs not only days and years, but destiny itself. You recall the calendar they created, the intricate cycles of the Tzolk'in and Chab, the long count that stretches across millennia. These were not abstractions, but living tools. To plant maize on the wrong day was to risk famine. To hold ceremony at the wrong time was to insult the gods. The calendar was not only a measure of time, it was the very structure of life. And here, in the heart of the city, you see how deeply it guided everything. A scribe shows you a codex filled with calculations. At first it looks like art, patterns of red and black dots and bars. But as he explains, you realize you are looking at mathematics. The Maya understood 0 centuries before much of the world. They tracked the cycles of planets with precision so great that even today their predictions astonish. Their numbers were not merely for counting goods, they were for mapping the cosmos, for aligning temples with solstices, for ensuring that every ritual fell into harmony with the heavens. The pyramid you stand before is not just architecture, it is an instrument. On certain days, when the sun reaches just the right angle, shadows fall across the stairs in the shape of a serpent, descending or ascending in rhythm with the seasons. To stand in that plaza on such a day would be to witness the earth and sky speaking to each other through stone. This was no accident. It was design, intellect, devotion carved into limestone. As you walk deeper into the city, you notice the balance of grandeur and intimacy. Yes, the pyramids soar, but behind them are courtyards where families cook, artisans carve, children play. The intellectual life of the Maya was not confined to temples. Knowledge was woven into daily life. Farmers knew the phases of the moon, as well as priests. Weavers embedded cosmic patterns into cloth. Even games, like the ball game played in stone courts, carried cosmic symbolism, the bounce of a rubber ball echoing the movement of planets. You pause at the edge of a ball court, its stone walls rising steeply on either side. Carvings depict players in elaborate gear, the ball itself shown as both object and symbol. To play here was not only sport, it was cosmic drama. The ball's path mirrored the sun's journey, its rebounds, the cycles of life and death. Victories and defeats were more than scores. They were omens, reminders that even play carried sacred weight. As afternoon light slants across the city, you sit near a scribe and watch him paint. His brush glides gracefully, each stroke precise. You ask, through Ixchel's translation, whether he ever tires of writing. He smiles faintly and shakes his head. Writing is remembering, he says softly. To stop writing is to forget. To forget is to end the world. His words settle into you, like a stone dropped in water, rippling outward. By evening, when you return to the village, your mind is full not of images alone, but of realizations. The pyramids, the stelae, the scribes, the astronomers all speak of a people who did not separate the practical from the spiritual, the intellectual from the sacred. For them, to build was to worship, to calculate was to pray, to observe the stars was to converse with eternity. And as you lie again on your woven mat, listening to the hum of night insects, you wonder what it must feel like to live in a world where every stone, every glyph, every star is alive with meaning. Perhaps it is overwhelming. Perhaps it is comforting. But there is no doubt it is extraordinary. Morning breaks again, and this time you are led not to the fields or temples, but to the bustling heart of the city, the marketplace. Long before you hear it, you sense its presence, the faint clamor of voices, the rhythmic beat of drums marking time, the sweet and savory smells drifting on the wind. By the time you step into the square, the energy is overwhelming. Here, trade is not just survival. It is culture, connection, and life itself. Stalls line the plaza, each shaded with woven mats or simple canopies. Traders call out their wares in melodic tones, their voices rising and falling like music. Before you stretches a sea of color, bright green quetzal feathers, shimmering in the sunlight, polished obsidian blades, so sharp they gleam like frozen water, rows of clay vessels painted with glyphs and animals, baskets piled high with cacao beans, salt, honey, peppers, and maize. The air is thick with movement, alive with the hum of negotiation and laughter. You watch as a woman from the coast arranges shells of every size and shape, their surfaces smoothed by the sea. Beside her, a trader from the mountains lays out chunks of jade, cool and heavy, their green depths catching the eye of passing nobles. A man with broad shoulders sells rubber balls, black and springy, destined for ball courts in distant cities. Children dart between stalls, carrying baskets of chili peppers or bundles of cotton thread. Each item tells a story of distance traveled, of connections made. Currency here is not coins stamped with kings, faces, but cacao beans, salt, and woven cloth. You see a man hand over a small bag of cacao in exchange for an obsidian knife, both sides nodding in satisfaction. The transaction is not hurried. It is accompanied by words, gestures, sometimes even jokes. Trade is not only exchange of goods, but of trust, relationship, ritual. A smile seals the bargain as much as any measure of beans. You notice how the market feels like a map, drawn in sound and smell. From the north come obsidian and furs, from the south cacao and tropical birds, from the coasts salt and shells, from the highlands jade and precious stones. Each trader brings not just goods, but stories, tales of rivers crossed, mountains climbed, storms endured. As they speak, listeners lean closer, hungry not only for items, but for knowledge. The marketplace is as much a center of information as it is of goods. The diversity astonishes you. Here, languages mingle as easily as foods. Some traders speak Maya tongues, others foreign dialects from distant lands. Hands gesture when words fail, laughter bridging the gaps. Children grow up surrounded by this polyphony, learning that to trade is also to translate, to understand others as much as oneself. And beyond goods and words there is performance. Musicians play flutes and drums to draw customers. Dancers act out comic skits to entertain buyers. And storytellers shout myths to curious crowds. Commerce and culture are inseparable. To come to market is not only to buy or sell. It is to be part of a living stage, where community performs itself. You pause by a stall selling cacao drinks. The vendor whisks the liquid briskly, raising a frothy foam before pouring it into clay cups. He sprinkles chili powder on top and offers it with a smile. You sip, and the flavor is electric bitter, spicy, invigorating. Around you, others drink the same, sharing in the same ritual. The market does not separate noble and commoner, local and foreigner, seller and buyer. All drink from the same cacao, all feel the same warmth. But trade is not only local. Through these markets stretch invisible threads that connect the Maya to lands far beyond. Feathers from Guatemala, copper bells from central Mexico, obsidian from the highlands, all prove that this is part of a network spanning hundreds of miles. To stand here is to stand at a crossroads of civilizations, where ideas travel as easily as goods. You watch as a scribe sits near the market, recording transactions in a codex. He writes not only numbers but symbols of goods and names, ensuring memory survives beyond the moment. The presence of writing here reminds you that trade is not fleeting. It is history in motion, recorded and preserved. Generations later, these records will tell of who sold, who bought, and what passed between them. What strikes you most is the joy. People laugh loudly, clap each other on the back, tease over prices, and walk away smiling, even when they know they paid more than they wanted. Trade is serious. Survival depends on it, but it is also playful, a chance to meet, to connect, to share stories. The marketplace is not only an economy, it is a festival repeated daily. As the day wears on, the sun climbs high, yet the market does not slow. Musicians keep playing, vendors keep calling, children keep laughing. Incense still drifts from portable burners, blessing transactions and keeping balance. A priest pauses to sprinkle water on a stall, ensuring good fortune for the seller. In this blending of sacred and practical, you see once again the essence of Maya life. Nothing is only one thing. Trade is economy, yes, but it is also ritual, performance, relationship, memory. When at last you step away from the square, the sounds follow you, the hum of voices, the beat of drums, the laughter of children, the whistle of flutes. The marketplace does not fade when you leave. It echoes, a living reminder that civilization is built not only by kings and priests, but by traders, farmers, artisans, and buyers. The grand pyramids may endure in stone, but the marketplace lives in memory, in story, in the everyday pulse of exchange. And as you return to the quieter paths of the village, you understand something profound. Power may shine in the regalia of kings, knowledge may be preserved in glyphs, but the heartbeat of the Maya world lies here in the marketplace, in the trade that connects people to each other, to distant lands, to gods who watch every bargain sealed with laughter and smoke. The market's hum still lingers in your ears, the memory of laughter and music weaving together with the scent of cacao and incense. Yet as you walk away, Ixchel leads you to a quieter place, a rise overlooking the fields beyond the city. From here the view stretches wide patches of maize swaying in the wind, distant villages like beads on a string, forests standing tall along the horizon. At first glance it is beautiful, abundant, eternal, but the elders who sit here remind you with their silence that nothing lasts forever. The Maya world was built on cycles. Day follows night, wet season follows dry, planting follows harvest. The people lived by these rhythms, confident in their return, but cycles are fragile, and even small shifts can bring great change. Elders recall seasons when the rains did not come, when the maize withered under a burning sky. Others speak of floods, when too much water drowned the crops, washing away soil so carefully tended. Each story carries the weight of memory, passed down so that the people never forget how thin the line between abundance and hunger truly is. You look more closely at the fields and notice signs of strain. The soil, once dark and rich, is lighter in patches, dry and tired. Families work harder to coax growth, rotating crops, letting some plots rest, but still the land groans under the pressure of feeding so many mouths. Forests recede, cut for new fields and for timber to build cities and temples. What was once balanced teeters toward exhaustion. The Maya know this, but what choice do they have? To live is to plant, and to plant is to take. The earth gives, but she also demands patience, and patience runs thin when children cry for food. The fragility of life here is not only ecological but political. Cities rise strong, fed by trade and tribute, but alliances are brittle. Kings compete for glory, for captives, for monuments that prove their divine favor. When the rains fail, when soil weakens, people look to their rulers and ask, "Why have the gods turned away? To maintain power, kings must perform ever more elaborate rituals, ever greater sacrifices, as though blood itself could call back the rain." Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. Doubt grows like weeds in dry soil. You recall the grandeur of the pyramids, the spectacle of processions, the richness of markets, but now you see another layer. Every stone hauled, every feather gathered, every cacao bean traded carries a cost. The system depends on delicate balances between soil and crop, rain and drought, tribute and reward. When any one thread frays, the whole weave trembles, and history tells us that tremble it did. Walking through a once abandoned field, you see remnants of old terraces, stone walls now broken and half buried. These were built to hold soil against erosion, to capture water, to stretch fertility a little longer. They speak of ingenuity, of resilience. But they also speak of desperation evidence, that people knew the land was slipping away and tried everything to hold it. Sometimes they succeeded, sometimes they failed. At night, sitting by the fire, you hear an elder speak softly. "We thought the cycles would never end," he says, staring into the embers. "We thought the rains would always return, that the maize would always grow. But when the skies turned hard and the earth cracked, we learned otherwise." His words carry not only sorrow but wisdom. Cycles are powerful, but they are not permanent. Even the most stable rhythms can falter. It is tempting to think of collapse as sudden, dramatic, a single moment of downfall. But here, you realize it was more like a slow unraveling, harvests shrinking, wars increasing, people migrating, cities straining under their own weight. The pyramids remained standing, but plazas grew quieter. The scribes kept writing, but fewer hands came to read. The rituals continued, but faith in their power wavered. Collapse was not an explosion, but a fading, like a fire burning low until only smoke remains. And yet, even in fragility, there is resilience. Families moved, villages adapted, traditions survived. The great cities may have been abandoned, but the people did not vanish. Their descendants still walk these lands, still plant maize, still burn incense, still tell stories of cycles and balance. The collapse of cities did not end the culture, it transformed it. Fragility, paradoxically, carried seeds of endurance. As you lie awake that night, listening to the wind move through the trees, you cannot help but reflect on your own world. We, too, live by cycles of economy, of climate, of community. We, too, believe in abundance that will never end. But the Maya remind us, soil grows tired, water grows scarce, balance is delicate. To forget this is to invite collapse. To remember it is to build resilience. The stars overhead shine brightly, the same stars the Maya priests once tracked to mark seasons. Their cycles endure, steady and vast. But down here, on Earth, cycles are fragile. And it is in that fragility that the true lesson lies, not to fear it, but to respect it, to live with care, to never take abundance for granted. The silence of the abandoned fields lingers in your thoughts, but soon you are reminded that endings are rarely final. Though the great cities may crumble, though pyramids may be swallowed by vines and plazas fall quiet, the people themselves endure. The Maya world does not vanish. It transforms, carrying its wisdom forward in ways both subtle and profound. You walk through a smaller village, far from the grand temples, where the hum of daily life continues, as if the collapse of cities were only a distant story. Women grind maize on stone metates, their rhythm unchanged. Men tend fields of milpa, coaxing maize, beans, and squash from the earth as their ancestors did. Children chase each other with laughter, their games echoing patterns played for centuries. Nothing here feels lost. Instead, it feels like continuity, a quieter but unbroken thread. Elders gather beneath the ceiba tree, their voices soft but steady as they tell stories of gods and ancestors. The names remain familiar: Itsamna, Kukulkan, Ixchel. The myths are retold not as relics but as living truths woven into the fabric of daily life. A child listens, wide-eyed, then runs to draw the story in the dirt, her fingers tracing lines that recall ancient glyphs. The writing system may fade in some places, but memory survives in oral tradition, carried from mouth to ear, from heart to heart. Rituals, too, remain. The incense burner still glows in the corner of the home, smoke rising as an offering. The first tortilla of the day is still broken as a gift to the gods. At the edge of the field, a farmer still scatters kernels before planting, asking the earth for blessing. These acts are small, quiet, but they are powerful. They prove that tradition does not depend on pyramids or palaces. It lives in gestures, repeated until they become part of the soul, even in the face of change. New rulers, new pressures, new faiths, imposed from beyond the Maya spirit, adapts without breaking. Some gods take new names, some rituals change form, but the essence remains. To burn incense, to plant maize, to honor ancestors, these acts cannot be erased. They are carried in the body, in memory, in the very rhythm of breathing. You notice how knowledge endures, not in grand libraries, but in daily practice. A healer gathers herbs from the forest, her knowledge of plants tracing back through countless generations. A midwife prepares for birth with prayers and rituals that echo ancient cosmology. A farmer watches the stars, his planting guided not by books, but by wisdom written in the sky. These are not remnants, they are living archives, as accurate and resilient as any stone carving. In one home, you see a woven cloth stretched on a loom. Its patterns are intricate, bright with reds and yellows. At first it seems decorative, but as Ixchel explains, the motifs are more than beauty. They are symbols of rain, fertility, and cosmic balance, designs passed down from weaver to weaver. To wear such cloth is to carry history on your body, to display not only color, but continuity. The weaving itself is memory, thread spun into resilience. Markets, too, remain, though smaller than those in great cities. Here, cacao beans still pass from hand to hand, salt still traded for obsidian, honey still poured into clay pots. Each transaction is modest, but together they weave a network that stretches across lands. The routes may shift, the scale may shrink, but the practice endures. Trade remains a heartbeat, keeping communities connected even when empires fade. At night, sitting again by the fire, you ask an elder how the people keep their traditions alive when so much around them has changed. He smiles, his eyes reflecting the flames, and answers simply, "Because we remember." He taps his chest. Memory is stronger than stone. Temples can fall, glyphs can fade, but memory walks with us. His words settle deep, carrying the weight of generations. You realize then that survival is not always about preserving the grand or the monumental. Sometimes it is about carrying forward the small, the ordinary, the daily. The Maya did not vanish. They adapted. Their language still spoken, their maize still planted, their rituals still practiced. Even today, in villages across these lands, the echo of ancient rhythms continues, disguised as everyday life. And so, as you look back on your journey through the Maya world, you understand its greatest lesson. Civilizations may rise and fall, cities may bloom and wither, but culture is more than stone. It lives in the hands that grind maize, in the smoke that rises at dawn, in the stories told beneath the ceiba tree. Continuity is survival, and survival is not silence. It is resilience, whispered across time. You close your eyes and breathe in the faint trace of incense, the same scent that has risen for centuries. The great pyramids may crumble, but the spirit of the Maya endures, not in ruins but in people, in memory, in the endless rhythm of life, carried forward. The journey through the Maya world has taken you from the hum of dawn in a quiet village to the roar of drums in a ceremonial plaza, from the scent of maize tortillas on a clay griddle to the grandeur of jade and quetzal feathers shimmering in sunlight. You have walked through milpas where beans climb maize stalks like old friends, and you have stood in markets alive with color, sound, and laughter. You have watched smoke rise in rituals of gratitude, and you have seen blood touch flame in ceremonies meant to sustain the balance of the cosmos. You have felt the joy of festivals, tasted the bitter fire of cacao, and marveled at the pyramids aligned with the stars. And finally, you have stood in abandoned fields, where silence speaks of fragility, only to discover that even in endings, life continues through memory and tradition. Now, as the journey nears its close, you sit once more by a fire, the night sky stretched vast above you, the stars burn steady, the same constellations the Maya priests once tracked with meticulous care. They remind you that while civilizations shift, the sky remains, a constant witness to human hopes and struggles. And in that vastness, you begin to see the Maya not as distant, exotic, or lost, but as human people who laughed, wept, worked, celebrated, doubted, and endured, just as we do today. What remains with you most is the rhythm of balance. The Maya lived with the constant awareness that everything demanded reciprocity. The earth gave maize, but maize required care. The gods gave rain, but rain required offerings. The community gave support, but support required contribution. Nothing was free. Nothing was taken for granted. Life was a cycle of giving and receiving, of remembering and honoring, of joy balanced with sacrifice. It is tempting to look at ruins, stone pyramids swallowed by vines, and think only of collapse. But the true story is not one of disappearance. It is one of continuity. The great plazas may fall silent, but the hum of grinding maize still echoes in villages. The grand glyphs may fade, but stories still pass from mouth to ear. The headdresses of kings may vanish, but dignity still shines in the simple weaving of cloth, the planting of seeds, the rising of incense, smoke at dawn. The Maya did not end. They transformed. And their descendants carry their world within them. Even now, you wonder what lessons this holds for us today. In our own lives, we often chase monuments of stone buildings, wealth, achievements, meant to last forever. Yet history reminds us that stone crumbles. What endures are the quieter things: memory, practice, tradition, relationships. Perhaps our true legacy is not in what towers we build, but in how we teach, how we share, how we sustain balance in the fragile cycles of our own world. The Maya also teach us that joy is not separate from devotion. Festivals were not distractions, but offerings. Laughter, music, and dance were not escapes from reality. They were affirmations of life itself. In a world where hardship was constant, joy was sacred. That lesson feels urgent even today, that celebration is not frivolous, but necessary. To laugh, to share, to dance, is to honor the gift of existence. And then there is the lesson of fragility. The Maya believed cycles would continue, yet climate shifts, soil fatigue, and political tensions strained their world. Cities emptied, fields failed, alliances broke. It is easy to imagine this as ancient history, distant and irrelevant, but as you sit under the stars, you realize how familiar it feels. We too live in fragile cycles of environment, of economy, of community. We too are tempted to believe they will last forever. But the Maya whisper a reminder: nothing endures without care. Balance must be maintained. To forget this is to risk everything. Yet their final gift is not despair, but resilience. Even after cities fell, even after silence-filled plazas, people endured. They carried memory in stories, rituals in gestures, wisdom in daily practice. They remind us that survival is not about the grand and monumental. It is about the ordinary and repeated. It is about lighting incense, planting seeds, sharing food, telling stories. It is about remembering who we are, even when the world shifts around us. So as the fire before you burns low and the night deepens, you find yourself breathing differently, slower, more attentive. You think of the tortilla rhythm, the incense smoke, the laughter of children in markets, the solemnity of sacrifice, the joy of festivals, the wisdom of stars, the fragility of soil, the endurance of memory. Together they form a tapestry, a story not just of the Maya, but of humanity itself. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of this journey, that across time and place, people are not so different. We all seek balance. We all honor what we depend on, in ways unique to our culture, but universal in meaning. We all face fragility, and we all find ways to endure. The Maya remind us that life is both fragile and resilient, fleeting and eternal, ordinary and sacred, and in that paradox lies the truth of being human. As dawn approaches, you rise from the fire. The smoke drifts upward, carrying your own silent offering. The stars fade into light, and once again the world awakens in rhythm. Children laughing, hands grinding maize, voices rising in greeting. And you realize the story is not over. It continues, in memory, in tradition, in the quiet resilience of people who remember. And so, our long walk through the world of the ancient Maya comes to its quiet close. We have stepped into their homes, tasted their food, worked in their fields, stood in awe before their kings, and listened to the whispers of their gods. We have seen how joy and hardship, beauty and brutality, faith and fear all wove together into the fabric of their daily lives. The Maya remind us that civilizations, like people, live in cycles, rising, flourishing, declining, and transforming. Their temples may crumble, but their wisdom endures. Their great cities may fall silent, but their stories still speak to us across the centuries. And perhaps, if we listen closely, we can carry their lessons into our own time, to live with balance, to honor the cycles of nature, to remember that joy and gratitude are as sacred as knowledge and power, Thank you for walking this journey with me tonight, wherever you are, and whatever time it is as you listen. I hope these stories of the Maya have given you not only a glimpse into history, but also a gentle reminder of our shared humanity. Rest well, dream deeply, and carry a piece of the ancient world with you into tomorrow. Good night, my friends. Until we meet again in another story,